7 days of creation, 7 deadly sins, 7 sacraments, 7 pillars of wisdom, 7 seals in the Book of Revelation, 7 heavens in Islamic tradition, 7 chakras in Hindu tradition, 7 notes in the musical scale used in almost every sacred musical tradition on earth. And then there is the week, 7 days, not 6, not 8, 7. Here is what most people do not know about the 7-day week. It has no astronomical basis. None. The day is based on the rotation of the Earth. The month approximates the cycle of the moon. The year follows the Earth's orbit around the sun. The week corresponds to nothing. Not a single cycle in the observable universe produces a 7-day interval. No planet, no moon, no star, no tide, no season gives us 7. Ancient Mesopotamian astronomers chose 7 because they could see 7 celestial bodies with the naked eye, the sun, the moon, and 5 visible planets. They assigned one celestial body to each day and built a 7-day cycle around that taxonomy. But why 7 bodies? Because 7 is the number they could see at once without losing count. And that is not a coincidence. That is the brain. Every religion that chose 7 chose it for the same reason those astronomers chose it. Not because 7 is divine, because 7 is the last number that feels immediately graspable. The largest quantity the human mind can hold in a single instant without effort. The number where knowing stops and counting begins. But here's the strange thing. 7's place in every religious tradition on earth was not assigned by any theology. It was assigned by the architecture of the human counting system. To understand why, you have to understand a cognitive feature so fundamental that most people never notice it is there. Your brain can perceive quantity in 2 completely different ways. The first is counting, slow, sequential, 1, then 2, then 3. Effortful, requires attention, can be disrupted by distraction. The second is subitizing. The word comes from the Latin subitus, sudden. It is the brain's ability to apprehend a quantity instantly without counting, without sequential processing, without any conscious effort at all. You do not count 3 dots on a page, you see 3, immediately, without deciding to. You do not count 4 items in front of you, you know 4, before you have consciously registered that you are perceiving quantity at all. This ability is not learned. It is not cultural. It appears in infants before they have language. It appears across every culture ever studied. It appears in species that share this cognitive feature. Birds, fish, primates, demonstrating it evolved long before human civilization had any reason to count. And it has a limit, a precise, consistent, universal limit. 7. Below 7, perception is instant. Above 7, the brain must count. 7 is the boundary between the world of the immediately known and the world that requires work to know. The brain does not experience 8 as just one more than 7. It experiences 8 as the beginning of the uncountable. Now here is where it gets complicated. A brain that perceives the world in 2 categories, the graspable and the uncountable, is a brain that has a built-in boundary between what is known and what is beyond knowing. And religion builds theology around exactly that kind of boundary. The boundary between the human and the divine, the finite and the infinite, what can be counted and what cannot. Now trace this through the religious traditions that chose 7. 7 days of creation, 6 days of work within the graspable range, the 7th as the day of rest that marks the completion of what can be accomplished, the boundary before the infinite divine existence that follows, the number that says, this is where human work ends and divine rest begins. 7 heavens in Islamic tradition. A cosmological architecture that places the divine realm beyond the 7th level, past the last number that feels immediately graspable. You can conceive of 7. What lies beyond 7 is the domain of the infinite. 7 chakras in Hindu tradition, energy centers that map onto the human body, with the 7th at the crown, marking the point of transition from embodied human experience to divine connection. The last one before beyond. 7 deadly sins. Not 6, not 8. But exactly the number at which the brain's natural categorization feels complete. A taxonomy of human failure that fills the entire graspable range without requiring a list that feels like it goes on too long. 7 notes in the musical scale, the complete set of tones before the octave repeats, the largest set of distinct musical elements that can be held in immediate acoustic working memory. None of these applications coordinated with each other. They all used 7 for the same reason. 7 is where the human mind reaches its natural limit, and the divine has always lived just past where the human mind stops. This sounds like philosophy. It isn't. Researchers have actually measured this. In 1956, psychologist George Miller at Princeton published one of the most cited papers in the history of cognitive science. Its title was The Magical Number 7, Plus or Minus 2. His finding: the human working memory system has a consistent capacity limit of approximately 7 items, the exact range at which subitizing operates. Below 7, cognitive processing is immediate. Above 7, errors multiply and processing slows. Miller called it the magical number 7. The title was partly tongue-in-cheek. The finding was not. Every phone number in the world was historically 7 digits long. Not because 7 is sacred, but because 7 is the largest string of numbers most humans can reliably hold in working memory without rehearsal. And here is what makes this relevant for every tradition that chose 7. The Mesopotamian astronomers who built the 7-day week were not making a theological claim when they chose 7 celestial bodies to organize their calendar. They were making an observational one. They could see 7. They could hold 7 in their minds simultaneously. 7 felt complete in a way that 8 did not. And complete within the graspable range is exactly the cognitive signature that the brain experiences as the right number for a sacred taxonomy. Not because divinity required 7. Because the brain that built the taxonomy of divinity has a working memory limit of 7, and it built the limit into everything it made. The brain did not develop subitizing to create sacred numbers. It developed subitizing to perceive quantity quickly in an environment where counting took too long. 7's place in every religion on earth is the side effect. Think about what that actually means. Take away the theology from every tradition that chose 7. Remove the creation narrative, the deadly sins, the heavens, the chakras, the sacraments, the seals. What is left? A brain with a perceptual limit of 7. A brain that experiences quantities up to 7 as immediately known. A brain that experiences everything beyond 7 as the beginning of the uncountable, the unmasterable, the infinite. And a brain that builds theology at the boundary between the known and the infinite was always going to find 7 at that boundary. Every single time. In every tradition. On every continent. Without any coordination between them. Because the limit was not cultural. It was architectural. The same cognitive boundary in every human brain that has ever existed produced the same theological significance in every tradition that ever used numbers to describe the relationship between the human and the divine. 7 is where we run out, and the divine has always lived in what comes after. Try this right now. Look around the room you are in and find a group of objects, any objects. 3 books on a shelf, 4 items on a desk, 6 things on a table. Notice that you know the quantity without counting. You did not decide to perceive 3 or 4 or 6. You simply perceived it, instantly, before the conscious mind had time to process a sequence. Now try to do the same thing with a larger group. 8 items, 9, 12. Notice the difference. The instant knowing is gone. You are counting now. Something shifted at the boundary between 7 and 8. Something that has been there since before you were born, since before any religion named it, since before any civilization decided that the number at that boundary was the most significant number in the universe. Every sacred 7 in every tradition that has ever used it is built on that shift you just felt. The last number that feels known. The first number that doesn't. Your brain has always known where the divine begins. It just never had a word for the boundary. The word is 7. It always was.